What's up, everybody? It's Wabacha, and this is going to be a Elemental Inquisitor Siege Ballista guide using the unique bow Iron Commander. Now, a little bit of background. I actually have played this build, the Elemental Iron Commander build, in the Parandus League in patch 2.2, and it went very, very well. So surprisingly well. And I got that character to level 95. You could actually still check out that build guide. Everything still works for it 100%. It is a champion Iron Commander Elemental Siege Ballista build. But this build guide is actually going to be focused on the Inquisitor version of this. Now, the reason why we're actually going Inquisitor is because someone had mentioned in a comment that you could just use the unique Jewel Fluid Motion to convert all this strength in between the Templar Star and the Scion Life Wheel to Dexterity. And I knew that you could do that, but I didn't really ever look at it. I thought that you would lose too much life, but I overlooked the fact that you could get Discipline and Training, which is very efficient for life. Also, Precision is very strong for Siege Ballista, and then you could also get the life regen and mana regen nodes at the start of Templar, which again is very good because you are casting your Siege Ballista off of mana. And with some recent changes in patch 2.4, we actually have a little bit of a higher mana cost, so getting a little bit more mana regen is worthwhile. So let me go ahead and explain this build to you and what we're actually going to be doing. First off, we're going to be starting as Templar. We're going to be going right through the mana and mana regen and life regen nodes. We're going to be coming up to Precision, and we could also grab Discipline and Training here. We're going to be coming down from Sanctity and going through Constitution, the Scion Life Wheel, and then through Sentinel down to Art of the Gladiator and Duelist. Now, what this is going to do is this is pretty much going to set you up in a way so where you could get 1, an Iron Commander, and 2, a Fluid Motion. And as soon as you get level 32, you could actually start using Siege Ballista. And Siege Ballista is a pretty good leveling build. But I'm going to keep going. You're going to grab Fury Bolts, come and get the projectile damage, get that dexterity, get down to Golem's Blood, and you could pick up Bravery. Now, this will put you at 40 passive points. Again, you should be level 32, 33, 34 by this time, and you could begin to use your Siege Ballista. Now, the thing about Siege Ballista is you need to reach breakpoints of 200, 400, and 600 dexterity in order for you to get an additional totem. And the reason why this is so good is because our build is focusing on adding flat damage. So when you are just getting an additional totem, that makes your flat damage even better. So after this point, we're going to be going down, and you're going to be doing a lot of traveling from here on out. But again, most of it is to grab dexterity. So you're going to be coming down through here, picking up all these dexterity nodes. You could start grabbing some crit damage. You could grab lethality, and you could grab King of the Hill whenever you would like. But you're going to come up and you're going to grab acrobatics. And acrobatics, I'd like to have it near the end of Cruel. If you want to go full phase acrobatics, you could do that. But again, just remember that it's going to make it take longer for you to get all the dexterity that you need, because you want to get 400 dexterity as soon as possible so you can have 3 totems. But after you grab acrobatics, you're going to go back up and you're going to go through Blood Drinker down to this dexterity node, grab Fangs of the Viper. Also go ahead and grab Depth Perception. Depth Perception is insanely good for Elemental Siege Ballista or just Siege Ballista in general. And you're also going to go through Coordination, Blood Siphon, and Trickery, then Assassination. Now, at this point, this is pretty much the core of the build for Elemental Siege Ballista. You're going to get things like Totemic Zeal. You should actually probably grab that a little bit earlier. You could also grab things like Totemic Mastery. What else could you grab? You're going to want to get these Jewel Sockets. You're going to finish out these Life Nodes and grab Herbalism, Jewel Sockets, Heartseeker, all this stuff. But again, the biggest thing is you want to make sure that you just get 400 dexterity by the time you hit Merciless Stride Lake. Because once you have 400 dexterity and you have the proper links and setups, you're going to be clearing content very, very fast with this build. And honestly, it deals a lot of damage. So this is going to be your basic passive tree. I will put a full passive tree, like a 90-point passive tree, down in the description below. But let me talk about Siege Ballista for just a minute to kind of explain some different things to everybody. So the first thing about Siege Ballista is, like I said, you deal a lot of elemental damage, and a lot of people think that you should scale physical damage with it, but you just don't get that much physical damage. And in order to get a lot of physical damage, you have to put a lot of strain on your gear. You have to use things like Black Sun Crest. You have to get dexterity on every single piece. And even then, you know, it's really debatable. There are some really good items for Siege Ballista that go really well with Elemental. And Siege Ballista, using it with an Iron Commander, I firmly believe that it is better the closer to a traditional build that it actually is. And this is the reason that we're essentially going a crit bow build with totems. And your goal is to have 600 dexterity, 159 intelligence. 159 intelligence is so you could have a level 21 Wrath aura. The other thing about Siege Ballista, especially with Inquisitor, is that with the champion version of this build, although you have a lot of defense with that version of Siege Ballista, and I would still play that, and I would still recommend it if somebody wanted to have a build that could, you know, do a lot of high level content. I still think Inquisitor could do high level content as well. You're just not going to be as tanky as a champion. But what you are definitely going to have as the Inquisitor is insane elemental damage. Now again, we are specifically going with a crit build. You get about 75% chance to crit with this build anyway. So when you're using things like Inevitable Judgment and Righteous Providence, you're going to have a lot of crit, and you're going to be ignoring enemy elemental resistances a lot, and you're going to deal a lot of damage. Furthermore, Instruments of Virtue is a very, very good mini steroid for the Siege Ballista build. Not only do you get 20% increased attack speed when you've attacked recently, which you will be doing with Frenzy, you will also be getting 50% increased attack damage every single time you use your Val Haste. And Val Haste is very, very good for this build. The damage goes through the roof with this build. I think this build has the absolute best potential and the best synergy with aura, like full aura supports. And it is very strong, so much so that it's very tempting to not play this over the build that I'm actually playing. As for your last two ascendancy points, it's kind of up in the air. You could do whatever you want. You could do Augury of Penitence, or you can do Sanctify. I'm kind of leaning towards Sanctify because I find myself using Sulfur Flask quite a bit, and Siege Ballista has such a long range that often you're not going to be in range of something to put that debuff that Augury of Penitence does on them. So I think Sanctify is a nice way to get a little bit more defense that you would otherwise not have. The other thing that I want to talk about with this build is the fact that you can also go point blank quite easily. Now, the only thing about point blank is, while it is, again, on paper, it's really good, but the problem with point blank is the fact that Siege Ballista does not have the luxury of having very tanky totems. In fact, with the changes recently to the damage that monsters deal that cast spells, you know, the skeletal mages and you know, anything that's casting spark or goats or the ribbons, since your totems aren't that tanky, a lot of the times you're going to be dealing a lot of off-screen damage, and you're placing your totems a little defensively, so going point blank is a little counterintuitive to that, although it would be a lot of damage and is probably going to help you a lot in boss killing. So I wouldn't necessarily say don't do it, but I'm just saying if you do decide to use point blank, just understand that your totems are not tanky at all, and they will die. The good news is, though, that with Siege Ballista, because you grab things like Druidic Rite and then Mana Flows, and also Siege Ballista is inherently a very inexpensive spell, you could recast your skills quite a bit, and it won't really hurt your build I think a fully 6-link Siege Ballista build is looking at a mana cost of 40 right now. That's just what I recall. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about this build, you could either check out the Duelist guide on the forums. I'm going to also be making an Inquisitor guide eventually, probably in the next few days after the start of the Essence League. I'm going to be playing that, of course. And, I will also, throughout this video, I hope you got all the information that you need. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid of asking. I will get to you as soon as I can. But overall, you could actually find most of the answers in that forum build with the champion. Hope you enjoy Essence League, and thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. And if you like the video, please like it, please share it, if you want other people to see this build. One last thing, a little shameless plug. I have actually been using my Twitter a lot recently, so if you guys want to follow me at Wabachaw on Twitter, that'd be fantastic. Again, thank you guys very much. Have a good one.